I mean, I understand why some people don't like Lucas, but overlook the good things he did. Like, he wasn't the only character who was bad. Brooke, Peyton, and Haley did some horrible things too, and others. This is something that I always kind of had to look at drama queens with the perspective of the sexism that women have most of the time and the favoritism that they have towards other things that they let slide, because I have always said that when it comes to Nathan and Haley, Haley was very dismissive to the abusive household that Nathan grew up in. So when he got to season 5 and he was completely like finished, the mentality of someone who's been so mentally abused to be a winner, to be forced to achieve something and then hit that kind of a snag and then be at the bottom of their entire mentality. Like, it's not that he can't walk again. It's not that he is disrespecting Haley. It's the fact that he's hit this failure where he doesn't know how to pick himself back up because he's never hit that kind of a low. To hit that kind of a low and you grew up in an abusive household like that, and Haley or Bethany Joy never really actually goes into the depth of how it's not just the father that's done it, it's Haley who's done it, it's his mom who's done it. It's something they never actually really talk about on Drama Queens podcast, the mental abuse that Nathan goes through as a man, to be abandoned by his mother, his father, his wife. And when he finally hits that snag where it's just like it's all come crashing down and it finally lands on top of him, you know, the whole committing suicide and all these things that just make him hit that like final stab down, they never talk about that. But they do uplift how Haley has to go off and find out who she is and find the passion for love and life and music and all the things. That's something that always just kind of makes me side-eye them. But then also we talk about how Peyton is this abandoned girl who's living at home by herself, and she's supposed to be this heroic woman, and she's artistic, and she's making all these choices, but we never talk about how she does drugs, or we never talk about how she is passive aggressive with Brooke. We never talk about how she never really confronts things that her and Brooke actually go through. They talk about it as if it's a love story when it's not. There are various narratives about the Drama Queens podcast where they don't celebrate the finding identity of their male counterparts. They just call out their bad decisions, and they look at the whole aspect of women as their self-discovery and finding themselves voices, and how it's always just the men who are abusive. But it takes both sides to make the other side better. You can't just sit on one side of your own pity party fence and say, oh, well, men are just bad, or oh, women are just bad. No, it takes both sides. And the fact that nobody really does speak about that says a lot about them personally, which makes me look at them from my perspective of, okay, so you as a woman are allowed to make mistakes. You as a woman are allowed to do these things that really are hurtful, because the things that Haley did to Nathan was hurtful. All these things leading up, like this, when he got to season 5, I kept looking and I was like, okay, he finally hit that bottom where he really is hitting that bottom. He's like, all the things that he went through, all the drama, all the abandonment, all the abuse, it finally hit that bottom, because I got where he was coming from. Haley's come from, or Brooke's come from, or Peyton's come from. It was always from a perspective of, yes, I do come from, this is me and as Brooke, I come from a place where I have money. I don't really have a home life, but I have popularity. And I don't come from a narrative where I don't necessarily not get my way, but the only time I don't get my way is when I'm stabbing my friend in the back, because I don't want her to have what I feel like I should have. That's always been there's too many eggs in your basket where you can make yourself look like a victim, but you don't want to take responsibility for the things that you put yourself in. And I never necessarily agreed with Brooke's whole comeuppance. That's why I love that whole Rachel storyline. Like when she and Rachel were in the same house, hanging out with each other, doing funny shit. because they match each other's energy and they have the same kind of bitchy mentality. Because Rachel gets Brooke and Brooke gets Rachel because they're both from rich families and they both have that narrative of, I do things maliciously to make people feel malicious intent towards me, while also trying to play the pity party game, because that's just the same energy that Brooke gave first season. The same thing with Julian, where he has that saver mentality and Brooke doesn't necessarily agree with it and she doesn't necessarily like it, but when he's dumbing himself down and he's making himself like the nerd, it makes more sense for her because she's like, okay, I'm still a little notch above you. Like, there's just certain mentalities that really always have put me at odds with this group of individuals, because there's a lot of inequality, not just based on the writing aspect of One Tree Hill, but the way the podcast goes and the way the characters and the actors talk about the podcast. But it is funny to watch everybody else chime in and be like, I feel the same way. I get what you're saying, because we used to have group chats with one another and we would have discussions. But it's very true that no character was perfect, but it would be nice if they start including the growth of and the mistakes of the women of this series.